Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Daisy, your hostess. Still the Mind, an introduction to meditation by Alan W. Watts. This is where we continue on with Alan Watts' explanation, very simple explanation actually, on what this concept of meditation is, and also, in a kind of interesting way, what it is not. For some people, even making time for meditation is a struggle, and there's just a lot going on in people's lives, just even to a little time to just sit and be in peace. And then there are other people that have to make a big production out of it, like it's a big thing, and they need to have all the gadgets and the toys and the incense and the candles and the ocean sounds or the bird sounds or face the east or whatever that is. And then when we finally settle down to do this thing called meditating, the chatter starts, then the itch starts, then the dog barks, somebody honks, just a bunch of stuff gets in the way. Now, if you just found me here at this video and would like to find out what Alan Watts recommends about meditating, that we just went through in the past video. So please make sure to check out my playlist and grab that video. Because seriously, we just really need to be. That's simple. We simply need to be. Before I turn the page here to Part 3, Still the Mind, Chapter 5, Contemplative Ritual, I want to take a minute and say thank you. Thank you to you who have subscribed to this channel. Thank you for leaving me your comments. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing videos. It does mean the world to me. Thank you again. Okay, let's sit back as I turn the page. Contemplative Ritual. For a long time, the kind of religious celebrations that we have conducted in the West have been filled with the spoken word and impossibly didactic. Almost all our religious observations are nothing but talk and consist of telling God what to do, as if he or she did not already know, and telling the people what to do, as if they were able or even willing to change. All of this is throwing the book at people and telling them the word, and I think we have had enough of it. The history of religion in the West is nearly equivalent to the history of the failure of preaching. By and large, preaching is a kind of moral violence that excites people's sense of guilt, and there is no less creative sense than that. You cannot love and feel guilty at the same time, any more than you can be afraid and angry at the same time. A spiritual experience. What seems to me to be lacking in our Western religion observances is some sort of ritual that gives us an opportunity for spiritual experience. By a spiritual experience, I am referring to a transformation of the individual consciousness so that in one way or another, the individual is able to realize his oneness with the eternal energy behind this universe, which some people call God, and others prefer not to name or to conceive. When Western people hear that an Asian practices meditation, they ask, "What do you meditate on?" But that question puzzles a Buddhist or a Hindu, because you do not meditate on anything any more than you breathe on anything. You breathe, and in the same way, you meditate. The verb is, in a way, intransitive. Meditation is the act of allowing one's thought to cease, coming into touch with reality. In the beginning of the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali described yoga, which means union, as spontaneously stopping the agitation of thinking. Thinking is talking to yourself or figuring to yourself, and it is habitual for most of us. If I talk all the time, however, I do not hear what anyone else has to say. Equally, if I talk to myself all the time, I will not have anything to think about except thoughts. There is no interval between thoughts during which I can come into touch with reality. That is to say, the world my thoughts represent, in the way words represent events or money represents wealth. If I am never silent in my head, I will find myself living in a world of total abstraction, divorced from reality altogether. You may ask, what is reality? People have various theories about what it is, but it is important to remember that they are all theories. Those who believe that reality is material are projecting upon the world a certain philosophical theory about it, and those who say that it is mental or spiritual are doing likewise. Reality itself is neither mental nor spiritual, nor any other concept that we can have of it. Reality is simply the present moment. You cannot meditate. Words are reality insofar as they are noises, but even that is saying too much. To meditate, you might think that you should attempt to suppress thought. But you don't do that because you cannot meditate. Let me repeat that emphatically. You cannot meditate. Your ego image, can only chatter, because when it stops, it isn't there. When you are not thinking, you have no ego, because your ego is nothing more than a habitual concept. The thinker behind the thoughts and the feeler behind the feelings are only thoughts. Each of these is an idea of some reference point to which all our experiences happen. That thought, however, cuts us off from what we experience and creates the illusion of a gap or gulf between the knower and the known. This, in turn, is responsible for the feeling of alienation we have from the world, and as a result, we suffer from conflict and hatred. The spirit of domination arises from that basic division that has been constructed in thought. And modern societies are typically obsessed with this highly obstructive illusion. When you come to an end of thought, you don't know how to meditate, and you don't know what to do with your mind, and nobody can tell you. But still, thinking comes to an end naturally, and you just watch. You don't have to ask who watches, because that question merely arises from the fact that in grammar, every verb has to have a subject by rule. But that is not a rule of nature. It is a rule of grammar. In nature, there can be watching without a separate watcher. And so you begin to meditate. When you realize that you have come to your wit's end, you can begin meditation. Or meditation happens. And that happening is simply the watching of what is, of all the information conveyed to you by your exterior and interior senses, and even the thoughts that keep chattering on about it all. You don't try to stop those thoughts. You just let them run as if they were birds twittering outside, and they will eventually become tired and stop. But don't worry about whether they do or don't. Just simply watch whatever it is that you are feeling, thinking, or experiencing. That's it. Just watch it, and don't go out of your way to put any names on it. This is really what meditation is. You are in meditation in an eternal present, and you are not expecting any result. You are not doing it to improve yourself because you found that you can't. Your ego can't possibly improve you because it is what's in need of improvement. And your ego can't let go of itself because it is a complex of thoughts called clinging to one's self. When it is finally understood that it is unable to achieve a transformation of consciousness or the vivid sense of union of individual and cosmos, it just evaporates. One of the easiest ways to enter in. One of the easiest ways to enter into the state of meditation, therefore, is listening to what is and experiencing the qualities of sound. Curiously enough, sound is a sense that bores us less easily than sight. When you hear it, just listen to the random sounds that you know are going on in the room or in the street. Listen as if you were listening to music without trying to identify its source, to name it, or to put any label on it at all. Just enjoy whatever sound may be going on, whether it is outside or in the area where you are sitting. That is part of the ritual. Just listen. Letting sound happen through us. We can go on from that listening to making sound ourselves while also listening to it. But instead of making sound, we will get the knack of letting it happen through us. Once a great choir master in England was rehearsing a choir in the presence of the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was then William Temple, a great theologian. And this was a rather raw choir that didn't really know much about singing. The master gave them a hymn to sing that they knew very well, and to impress the Archbishop, they sang it with gusto, and it sounded forced and terrible. Then the choir master asked them to sing a little known hymn and had them go over it several times until everybody got the hang of it. "Now," he said, "I want you to sing this hymn again, but there's one very important thing. Don't try to sing it. You mustn't try. You must think of the melody and let it sing itself." And they sang it very well. Afterward, he turned to the Archbishop and said, "Your Grace, that's good theology, isn't it?" And it obviously was, since the Archbishop told me the story. Mantra. In India, we find the use of mantra. A mantra is what we would call a chant, where words and sounds are chanted not for their meaning, but for their sound. Most mantras are not intended to be understood in a discursive and intellectual sense. Instead, you are asked only to go down into the sound, and the sound penetrates you. You are able to settle right to the bottom of it, because when you are listening to sound, and when you are letting sound hum through you, it is one of the most obvious manifestations of the energy of the universe. It is commonly said in India that sound is Brahman, sound is God, and perhaps that is the original meaning of saying, "In the beginning was the Word." It did not mean that in the beginning was the chatter, or in the beginning was the commandment, or the orders. It meant the vibrations, the sound of the word. So concentrate purely on the sound, and you will find some mantras that play in your ears are so simple that you will be able to join in with them effortlessly, and please do so quite freely. It is a pity that the Roman Catholic Church, which used to have a mantric service, is dropping it and putting the Mass in the vernacular. And not particularly good vernacular at that, as far as the English translation is concerned. It has begun to sound terribly intellectual, and often there is somebody standing by the altar with a microphone to explain what's going on, so that it is no longer possible to practice contemplative prayer at Mass. Instead, you are hammered with information, with exaltation, with edification all the time. And the Catholic Church should realize that in giving up Latin, it has lost its magic. Although we associate mantras with religion, they are not supposed to be understood, because religion is that which is past understanding. Understanding may lead up to it, but to express religion intellectually is to try to use the intellect for something it cannot do. It is comparable to picking up the telephone and dialing WHATISGOD and expecting to get a useful answer. Although the telephone is very useful otherwise, you cannot find out the mystery of the universe through talk, only through awareness. For that reason, I have suggested that churches get rid of their pews, where everybody looks at the backs of each other's necks, and that they spread their floors with rugs and cushions, so that instead of sermon, they have a ritual in which people can approach an ineffable spiritual experience rather than being forced into a particular pattern of thinking. In this spirit, I have only given the slightest suggestion of how one uses the mantra or the silence for meditation. You all have your own way of doing things like that, so do it your own way. This technique is a vehicle or a support for contemplation, and I suggest you simply sit quietly, and when you feel settled, proceed into contemplation. Still the mind. Sit quietly and be with your breath, your mind, and all your feelings. It doesn't matter whether you are sitting cross-legged or your knees with your legs folded underneath you. The point is to settle into a posture that is stable and comfortable. You can cross your legs in front of you, or if you are limber, you may wish to try the half lotus or full lotus position. You can sit on a cushion with your knees bent and legs on either side, or you can sit in a chair. The idea is to be comfortable and find a position that you can maintain effortlessly. As you settle in, remember that although stillness is emphasized in meditation, this does not mean that you should hold still in a rigid way. Becoming still physically helps one to find stillness of mind. But if you need to move, get comfortable so that you can settle even more deeply. Keep your back upright and your head erect, but let your arms relax. Rest the left palm in the right palm and put your thumbs together as if you were holding an egg. Your hands should be positioned at your belly with your thumbs just below the navel. If you are sitting cross-legged, you may wish to rock back and forth for a moment to find your natural center. If you are sitting in a chair, plant your feet on the ground so that you are grounded. Your mouth should be closed, the eyes lowered slightly. When you have found a stable posture, allow your awareness to sink into your breath and to find the bottom of your breath. You are not trying to cultivate a particular kind of breath. Just gently pay attention to your breathing. Allow the breath to come and go as it may. That's all you need to do. Your body will become still, and your mind will naturally, at some point, become still as well. That is the essential process of meditation. If you wish, you can begin to hum when you feel comfortable with it. As your voice rises, begin to play with the sound. The play of sound will eventually settle into a pattern, and a mantra will spontaneously form. Go with it, and in this moment, you are experiencing ritual in its richest form. End of chapter, and also the end of the reading, Still the Mind, An Introduction to Meditation by Alan W. Watts. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please do, on your way out, hit that like button. If this has been useful for you, let me know what you found interesting. Leave me a comment, share this with your friends, and consider subscribing to the channel. Be blessed, and we'll catch each other somewhere here on my channel, wherever that may be.